IVM.
Hi, I'm Rohan Joshi, and on my podcast, the show about crypto, I've been having some pretty cool conversations with industry experts about what exactly cryptocurrency is and what makes it so exciting. If you haven't already, please check it out on the IVM Podcasts Network. Now, a quick shout out to my fellow crypto heads. We've got a listener survey going on, which will take not more than 10 minutes of your time to fill out. So please check the link in the description and help me out by filling it up. Don't forget to tune into a show about crypto on the IVM app and wherever you get your podcasts from.
This is Storytellers and Story Sellers live on tape. You're listening to me, Vineet on the IVM Podcast Network. This is the month of love, and I think for anyone who's listening to music in the year 2022, the album of Gehraiyaan has been the soundtrack to love. And I am so glad to be joined by Kabeer Kathpalia, aka OAFF, and we'll get to that acronym in a second. On this episode, Kabeer, welcome to the show.
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. Kabeer, you're joining us from Ahmedabad.
Yeah, I'm in Ahmedabad right now. I've just, after this thing, taking a short break traveling. Then going to Goa to meet my partner Savera, who lives there. And then, yeah.
And how have you been celebrating, man? How's the post Gehraiyaan glow?
To be honest, I haven't really. It's strange because you kind of have, you think that you want something like this to happen, this kind of success with the music, but I don't really feel too different. I feel the same. So I think when I go to Goa and meet Savera, because we haven't met since the songs have released. He left before the songs came out. And the plan is to get some surfing lessons in together and chill together. So hopefully it'll sink in then and we'll have some celebration there.
Love it, man. We'll be right back after a few messages to talk to Kabeer about Gehraiyaan, about his recent success and what lies ahead for OAFF. We'll be back on Storytellers and Story Sellers right after these messages.
Don't you think that if everyone around you is getting smart, you better be smarter? Hey there, I'm the traveling professor Siddharth Deshmukh, and I'm back with season 2 of my podcast to make you smarter. Smarter with Sid. What's this season's focus about? Well, it's about 10-minute nuggets that will make you stand out at work. It's time to go from smart to smarter. Tune in every Tuesday and Thursday and become smarter with Sid.
And we're back. This is Storytellers and Story Sellers. I'm Vineet. You're listening to me talking to Kabeer Kathpalia, aka OAFF. Now, before we build up to Gehraiyaan and the amazing sound that you just, unleashed upon this country in January, tell me a little. I mean, I'd love my listeners to get to know you a little bit better, man. I mean, like we were talking before this conversation started, Ahmedabad is a city that's very dear to me. I spent a couple of great years there. But how's your life been there, man? I mean, what kind of teenager was Kabeer? What kind of music did you listen to? What was your musical dream like? Tell us a little bit.
Okay, first of all, thank you for saying OAFF correctly. I've been told by people that I need to do some activity to make sure people get my name right, because they're like, why did you name yourself OAFF? And people call it OAFF, OAFF, all kinds of things. So thank you. First of all, you said OAFF, so I'm happy. I was born and brought up in Ahmedabad. I studied here. I've changed like 6-7 schools. So all my schools were kind of sort of these experimental schools where I was either the first batch in many of them, or it was a different kind of learning. So my parents did a lot of experiments on me. And Ahmedabad was cool. I was in this school finally where Savera, my music partner, Lothika, the singer, and we are all from the same school. I started playing music, picked up my guitar because of Savera. He had this old fake guitar, copy of some other guitar, and we wanted to, I guess, impress girls in high school. And we started playing guitar, and we had a punk rock band where we would call Experiment 7, where we would like go. We were like really young kids and go to these big college fests, and we'd be like wearing ties and like all cool punk and doing all kinds of stuff.
And this was in like 2011, 12?
This was when I was in grade 8, 9, so maybe 2008, 9, sometime there. Yeah, after that I went to college. I I didn't want to study, to be honest. I wanted to become a magician. And or something else. So, but my parents are like, listen, you need to get a degree, as of course parents will say. So then I went to college and I studied maths and physics. And after that, I was like, oh, cool, I've done this. So now I need some time to make my own music. So I was producing music back in Ahmedabad, and I started getting calls to produce music for other people. And then eventually somebody offered me money to make music for somebody else. So I was like, oh, interesting. And then after doing that for a while, I shifted to Bombay, started doing advertising work, music, and I've been in Bombay since. And Savera and I started working again. We were like, hey, you are doing this, I'm doing this, so why don't we both work together? And then we've done like between us, I don't know, 500, 600 ads together. Uh, and yeah, and then Shakun messaged me on Instagram, and here I am.
Right, man. That's quite a journey. I want to pick at a couple of things. First of all, how do you go from pretending or playing punk rock music, then suddenly going to maths and physics and back to music? Like, were you still playing music all along, or was it like, okay, I really love this, but I'm going to focus on something else, and maybe you discovered your way back? How did that work?
So I was always interested in science. In fact, my like dream was to become either at some point a geneticist or later on a physicist or a mathematician or something like that. Of course, when you're in high school and they're raging hormones and all that, and you want to be in a band and be with the cool kids. So I got the guitar because of that. But very soon I discovered that I'm actually more than playing for other people. I'm more interested to learn why the music works and the theory behind it. So very quickly I stopped playing and I stopped being like performing and things, and I just got into learning more and more theory and practicing on my own. And so if today at somebody at a party, which it always happens, there's somebody gets out a guitar and like, sir, Gana baja. I literally don't know any song that I can play because I never bothered to learn any other song. I just
Wonderwall, man. It's Wonderwall. You gotta play Wonderwall, man.
That is the only song that I can play. And everybody's looking at me like, are you serious? You're going to play Wonderwall?
Love it, man.
So, but I just wanted to understand, why do these things sound good? What is the maths behind it? And I really got into that more and more. And I think that was the natural journey from being a guitarist to getting into creating and producing the whole thing. Because I was like, now I understand a little more about what goes behind creating music and understanding the science behind it. So that's how I got into it. So yeah, to answer your question, I was playing guitar. Even in college, I was playing guitar. And towards the end of college, I started really getting into creating my own music on guitar or whatever software I could get my hands on.
Love it, man. I mean, and you do get like that sort of maths, physics sort of bleeding into early OAFF stuff, sort of, kind of, I think.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's not a conscious decision, but I'm always interested whenever I hear music to understand why do I like it, what is happening behind it, how can I make this, if I had to do this on my own, how can I learn the ideas behind this. So it's always a matter of like deconstructing and then understanding for me.
I'm going to come back to this when we talk through the album and ask you to sort of deconstruct some of the stuff that went on there. I think that'll be an interesting conversation. But to continue our build up to that. So you're doing this, then the lockdown happens, right? And I think you've been pretty prolific in the lockdown in that sense, right? You had some stuff come out. You had collabs come out. You became a radar artist. Continuing your sequence of wins, I think one of your earlier collabs with Kamakshi, which was actually debuted on this podcast, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. Is now going to be in a movie. So pretty prolific lockdown. I want you to start by telling us how you coped with it, how you really got your, creative and collaborative juices going. How was lockdown for you, man, making music?
So, I mean, of course, lockdown, I mean, it sucked for everyone, and I don't want to be the one guy where like, mere liye bahut acha tha type. Because, I mean, it was horrible. But having said that,
sucks for you guys.
I'm someone who's like, when I was in Bombay, and we had Savera and I were doing ads constantly. So I couldn't devote as much time as I wanted to my independent stuff. And when the lockdown really happened, I was like, I have to do something in the lockdown. I like making music. Whether I'm doing ads or this and that, I want to be making music. So music is a constant in my life. So I just became like hyper caffeinated, hyper efficient, and I was like, bang, bam, bam. I'm just going to start putting things out, figure this out. And I reached out to people to collaborate with who I thought might be interesting collaborations. I did one with Kayan Ambika. I did one with Kamakshi. I did one with Saurabh Nicholson, Lance. I did a bunch of like Instagram things where I would be playing guitar or putting up some video editing things that are like small snippets I would make. For me, it's very important to keep pushing. It's hard for me to relax, which is something I'm trying to learn. So even when I'm going to Goa right now to meet Savera, I'm like, listen, we need to do this, get these things in order. But yeah, so that's why when the lockdown happened and I had nothing else to do, I was like, let me do all of this.
Love it. Are you like that way just about the music or about like other things in life as well? Like this, and this?
I guess my life has been just the music of late. Like everything else has kind of taken a backseat. So it has been a lot about the music, and I've become this very, I don't want to say efficient, but like it's important to me to be constantly doing something.
Right. I mean, I think that's a good place to be, right?
I guess at some level, I think at some level it's also important to decompress and not think about work. But yeah, so that was the lockdown. Now it's different.
Love it. And then, I mean, as 2022 rolled by, as this album came out, I'm guessing you got sometime in the last year, you got a message from Shakun Batra, like you said, saying, hey, like your music, what's up? Can we do something? I'm sure it was an exciting moment. I want you to help us understand how you evaluated this moment, right? Like, because major mainstream movie and you, right? I'm sure it was a big decision. How did you evaluate? How excited were you? What was going through your head at that time?
So it was interesting. I think during that period, I had like recently put out this track called Perpetuate, which was this instrumental electronica track. And I was doing a bunch of stuff like that kind of work. And one day I get a message from Shakun Batra. I had seen his previous movie, Kapoor and Sons, and I loved it. And at that time, I'd gone to the theater, and I was thinking to myself that it would be great to be able to work with this director. And I get this message. So he's like, hey, love your music. Do you want to meet? So, I mean, of course, I want to meet. So I went, started talking to him, and he wanted to get us on board for the score. So and in fact, in his movie, he had put Perpetuate as a temp track and other tracks of mine and Savera's to kind of create the vibe already. Ankur Tiwari was the music supervisor. So they had already had some conversations. We got onto the score, and slowly, Savera and I like, hopefully we get a chance to pitch a song also, try something. So eventually we got that chance and it worked, and then we got another chance, it worked, and then after like 3 songs, they're like, do you guys want to do the whole album? We're like, yes, we do.
Love it, man. And what an album it has turned out to be, right? I mean, right from that sort of opening refrain of Tu Marz Hai Dawabi and the way it caught on to how Dubey, I think, is the track of the year so far. I think Dubey will end up being one of the tracks of the summer as things open up and as people head back to partying.
Yeah, I've been seeing people. I get random messages on my Instagram of people from all parts, like somebody from Baroda sending me video of a dance party in Baroda and Dubai is playing. So it's pretty cool.
Love it. I mean, that's what I wanted to ask you. How has life changed, man? Post this, I think the entire album came out 1st of Feb or something was when the album came out, right? Like early, and the songs dropped through January. But how has life changed after that?
Well, to be honest, I don't feel any, like I was saying, it doesn't seem like anything has changed.
Right.
Because it's just what has changed is maybe now the kind of attention that I'm having to interact with, the kind of messages I get, people telling me about how much it maybe affected them or how they love the song. So yeah, apart from that, I wouldn't say it's really changed much. It's the same. Maybe now I'm more confident about ourselves a little bit because Shakun really got us to do our kind of music that we were making independently. It wasn't like a gun for hire that happens in advertisement where they'll be like, we need this retro 80s vibe. So I feel good about the fact that we were very honest to ourselves in terms of the music. This was the kind of music that I and Savera would listen to. I think that's the most exciting part, and it also is exciting because now in the future, we both are more confident about ourselves after getting this kind of validation.
Love it. I was telling you before we started recording about how everyone who's heard the music, and a lot of people around me have heard the music, and everyone's had the same reaction, which is this is fresh, this seems organic to the story that's being told. This seems like it was, although it was made for this moment or this movie, it seems like this music was made to enjoy for anybody who's listening, right? And it was more of an album by an artist or an OST than any other that we've seen in a long time, right? I mean, I'm going to be controversial or maybe stupid and say maybe Amit Trivedi and Dev D was this sort of fitting original sound coming through, right? And that's just me, and at least from the music that I know. I'm sure I'm wrong and someone else will cite a more recent example, but it's beautiful the way it's captured imaginations. What I want you to do after we come back from this break is just walk us through the album, right? I want to hear about how you created these songs, the collaboration maybe with the lyricist Kausar Munir. I'd love to know the journey from Frontline to Gehraiyaan and how that happened, right? Like maybe we do a sort of ship of Theseus around it, and then we'll come back and talk about the other stuff that you're doing as well. So
Sure, yeah.
Go nowhere. We'll be right back after this break on Storytellers and Storysellers.
Do you like true crime stories? Do you like to learn about the people behind some horrible, awful crimes? More specifically, women that may have committed these crimes. Actually, Indian criminals that are women? Then we'd like to welcome you to our podcast, Misconduct. My name is Raghavi. And I am Nisha. We cover themes like murder, dacoity, drug trafficking, financial fraud, kidnapping, and many more. You can catch us every Wednesday on the IVM Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcast.
Back on Storytellers and Storysellers, we're talking to Kabeer, aka OAFF. Kabeer, before the break, we talked about how the album came around, Shakun's message, and what you set out to do. I'd love it if you took us through the three main songs with your notes on how they were created, the collaborations that made them possible, the inputs from Shakun. Let's start maybe with the banger of the season so far, Dubey. My God, what a track. How did you do this? And have you been arrested for a crime? I mean, what is going on, dude? It's insane. This song is... My mom was singing Dubey.
Oh, wow.
I'm not even joking, right? I called her the other day, a couple of days ago, and I was like, hey, listen, have you watched Gehraiyaan? And she's like, no, should I watch it? I was like, yeah, please watch it. It's probably like the silsila of our times, maybe.
Right.
And she did. And the next time I spoke, and she started the call by singing Dubey. And I was like, wow. So yeah, tell us, man, how did this banger come about?
Okay, so before I get into the details, I need to tell you that honestly, I don't know how any of this happens. I wish somebody asked me the other day that do you have like a game plan or a list of things that aspiring musicians or producers could do? And I was like, I wish I had a list for myself because after creating the song, I was like, Savera and I was talking like, listen, what did we do? Like, do you remember what are the steps we took? There is no plan. We're just experimenting in the studio, messing around, playing. So for Dubey, it was not the first song that we made. It was, I think, we had pitched a couple of other songs before, which I'll tell you about later. But he told us about the situation that is the first, spoiler alert, I mean, I guess, it's the first song that plays when the affair kind of starts. There was something else that he had tempted with to cut the thing because it's not a lip sync song. So we heard that, but we just went on our own trip and decided to do something what we thought was good. And Shakun always is happy for us to try and experiment and be like, do what you think is best. So we had that freedom. I was sitting in Ahmedabad in this very room and Savera was in Goa, and so I sent him the dang, 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 dang. And there was a guitar thing, and I was like, how do I make this more interesting? So I cut it up and made it like this stuttery kind of thing. And then I think we were thinking like, listen, पिक्चर का गाना है तो कुछ पॉप सॉन्ग जैसा बनाना पड़ेगा, क्या करते हैं? We don't know anything, so we are like, oh, okay. So we're like, okay, we need a good bass line. So I think at some point we made like this some sort of bass line, and we like the idea that instead of a chorus where it goes up, it actually feels like it's going empty, and it's like this sudden contrast.
Right.
So like lush, 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 and then sudden emptiness, and then back. So that kind of contrast has a cool moment. So we had an idea, and Savera and I write music in English. We think in English, so it's easier for us to kind of phrase melodies in English. So he sang some melodies, and we worked on them, tweaked them, and before sending it to Shakun, I think the final step was getting that bass line into this synth bass that it's there right now. Once we had that, we sent it to him. We had a couple of options, but we were like, yeah, this one seems like a cool one, and also it seems like us. So let's send this. So then Shakun, he heard it. He's like, yeah, I'm liking it. Let me get lyrics on board, and he got Kausar Munir. Ankur was, to be honest, super helpful in this regard, apart from the supervision also, because for a Hindi lyricist to get words in English and then to kind of phrase those same words in Hindi, the meter and etc. is
Right.
quite a task.
Absolutely.
So Ankur would kind of do the first step where from the English he'd put it into some dummy Hindi words, and then Kausar Munir would take it and make it into the real Hindi words with the story and everything. So it was quite a process.
Right.
Um,
That sounds rigorous, man. I mean, no wonder the thematic of Dubey and drowning and in the lyrics really comes home, right? And it really feels wrapped around the melody very nicely.
yeah, everybody on board, obviously, of course. Shakun was very clear about what it needed to communicate.
Right.
For him, more than song, it's like a piece of score that's a song, kind of. You need to take the story ahead. In fact, we even went, Savera and I were like, listen, how do we make sure that this gets approved? So we put like wave sounds in the middle and all. We're like, listen, sell the idea that this is about Gehraiyaan, it's water.
Right.
Like, it's about Dubey. So let's go all out. Finally, they're like, okay, we need to send it to the producers, and they need to give their final approval. And so Savera and I are like, okay, we're nervous, and yeah, and finally he's like, guys, everybody loved it. So that was the first one. We're thinking about who to get to sing, but Lothika, who then happened to be doing the other things in the movie as well. I worked with her multiple times before, and her voice texture is unique, and she's like, it's like you call your friends and we're like, let's jam, that kind of vibe. So she came and she sang, and then it worked.
Wow, man. I mean, more and more it sounds like you guys are living like a college, like a school or a college dream. Man.
I know.
It's beautiful.
I'm actually, like, I was thinking about how lucky we are to be able to make friends, to make music with your like close friends, and how people have faith in that kind of music. So it is pretty cool for us.
Brilliant. Let's walk through Bekabu quickly. And then big event with Gehraiyaan we'll build up to.
So Bekabu, quick one, is basically, that was actually the first song that we made before Dubey and all. We made Bekabu and one more scratch, and we sent it to him, and sort of nothing happened. He's like, yeah, I like this vibe, but maybe can we try this? And then we got into other things. Then one day we are like, hey, there's this second song. We have these 2 tracks lying from before. And we played it, and he's like, why didn't you show me this song before? I was like, dude, we had this song. He's like, oh, really? So we're like, yeah, like, we've tweaked it a little, check it out. So they liked it. And then Savera had sung the male version already. And so we're like, you only sing the Hindi version, and we need a female. So we got Shalmali. And it kind of has this synth, atmospheric pop, synth kind of vibe. It's one of the few things in the album that actually has a guitar on it, surprisingly. So yeah, that was Bekabu. It was designed to be synth pop, cool vibe jam. And
I think it'll be the sleeper hit of the album. It'll be the song that people discover after their after the novelty of the first two sort of washes over them.
I know somebody was saying that, listen, our engineer was like, this is your bastard child. You guys, in the end, it's going to be the big one, but you wait and watch. So, like, yeah, it's cool. And actually, a lot of people, even like Deepika put up on a thing that it's her favorite song out of the album. And I gotten this from a lot of people that they actually like Bekabu a lot. So I'm really happy that it's resonating in this way. And people are dancing to it.
Love it. The big one, I mean, the title track. Now, I don't know how many people know this. I think it's common knowledge with people who've been following your work that this is a sort of inspired by a song that you'd already done. I know it's not the same song. It's fairly different in both language and treatment. But talk us through the journey from Frontline to Gehraiyaan. How did that come about?
Yeah. So in 2018, in fact, this was the second song I released as OAFF. And Lothika and I used to come, she used to come over to my place and we used to like have these writing, jamming sessions just for fun. And we were good friends. So anyway, she'd come and hang. She had just lost her grandmother and she had come over, she was dealing with that. So we're like, this is something that we can talk about in our music and maybe it helps us deal with things, helps her deal with this, and it's sort of like therapy. So we made this song Frontline, and we put it out. It did whatever reasonably with whoever was following me, then heard it. Cut to all these songs are happening in Gehraiyaan. We are doing the background score, we are doing the songs, and they have this promo unit, which is what the first thing that they put out, where this thing was there. And the guy who was doing the promo units and the photography and a lot of the work with Shakun, Karan Kapoor, he took Frontline and he put it onto the promo, the English version. And Shakun loved it. He showed it to other people. He showed it to the cast, I think, and everybody kind of felt like the vibes really work well with the visuals. So Shakun was like, can we make something like this? Because I feel like this goes with the vibe of the film. Interestingly, the imagery of Frontline also is water and all of that. So he's like, can we create something in this mood? And I think at some point they were like, why don't we just tailor make this song into a Hindi song for this film? So Ankur came, he's supervisor, so he was there and he was like, I'll pen down something roughly. So he penned down something roughly. We made a version and it just sort of clicked. And they were like, okay, this is the final version. Let's just do this, record it properly. And that's how we reached Gehraiyaan.
Wow, man. I mean, to go from a song that was 2018 and a sort of moment of catharsis maybe into the biggest hit of the year so far, it's an epic ride. I mean, only in indie can you have the sort of realness that this takes through, man. And I'm so glad that it's happened right off the bat with a sound that is so fresh and so original, yet feels so tailor made for the album. It's just wonderful, man. Thank you for taking us through that. I'm almost obliged to ask you, what is your favorite song in the album?
Again, it's like picking between your children, so it's not a fair question. But I'd say Dubey is my favorite.
Right.
Yeah, just because whenever that bass line, I don't listen to my own songs too often, but I still enjoy listening to Dubey. And when that bass line comes in, I'm also like, yeah, we did something right.
Great track, man. Let me ask you this, right? And related to the success of Dubey, right? You were on the radar, so to speak, right? Stuff coming out last year, Spotify recognition with you on the radar as well. And clearly, you were on to something good. Not a reference to so good, but still so good. And then now you turn back to your Spotify and there's 2.5 billion listeners.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. I'm like, I was literally looking at my Spotify first at 10,000. I was like, yes. So Spotify actually helped me a lot because the first song that I ever released for a while, which was a collaboration between Savera and I, somehow I put it up. First song is like some friend saw it. And then one day I get a message from a friend saying that, dude, do you know that you have a million streams on for a while? I was like, what? That can't be right. Like, let me check. There's a mistake or something. And I checked, and it had on its own kind of blown up. And so already it was like very encouraging thing. But I was like, okay, it happened here because of so many things coming together. And now when I look at it and I see Dubai or whatnot hitting multiple millions in a few days, it's really a cool feeling, because there's been a lot of hard work. And even for, like, we were talking about this earlier about pushing and whatnot, so not in a bad way, but I just feel like as indie musicians, I think it's important to do that, and it's important to make sure that you are holding yourself responsible for your own success and your own work, whatever it means to you. It doesn't have to mean a million streams. It could mean that you got to play in front of 10 friends and you enjoyed it, whatever. But we need to be accountable for our own futures, is what I believe. And so, if anything happens, I feel like we are responsible for it. So, even to like people who might be listening, who are maybe aspiring musicians or indie musicians, is I literally took all my money and all the savings that I had and put it into every song of mine, because I was like, if I don't invest in myself, who's going to invest in myself? So from music videos, from getting it mixed and mastered multiple times till I'm happy with the quality of it, I think that's maybe something that I did that might have worked in my favor.
So just pushing towards creating something that excites you, that's new, that's original, that's still true to what you want to put out, right? Not just something else. That sounds epic, man. I'm trying to imagine what it makes you feel about your next project when you see, going from say 50,000, 100,000 to 2.5 million. How does that put you under a lot of sort of pressure? Do you feel that pressure about your next, or you're like, hey, this is great, I've worked towards it, but I'm going to continue, stick to my principles and go back to what I used to do? How are you looking at that?
So look, we've started talking to like our next project, and we've had like conversations, and there are some interesting things in the pipeline. I guess at some level there is a bit of like, okay, now round two, what are you gonna do? But at the end of the day, I just remind myself, and Savera is there to ground me always, because he's got a great perspective on this as well. But I think the reason people resonated with the music is because we just did us, like we were just making music for ourselves. And if we remember that, and just craft is fine. Craft is, people can learn craft and people can learn technical things. That's okay. We literally made the whole background score, all the songs, everything on this one laptop. So we didn't have some crazy, setup or whatever. We had the resources to do it now because it's a film, but everything was done on a laptop. So I think the most important thing that we try reminding ourselves is like, if Savera and I are excited by it and we are liking it, then we put it out and then we go ahead. So everything gets filtered by both of us, and that's what we're going to do for the next projects as well.
Love it, man. I love the clarity. I love it when it's great. It worked because we did it this way, so we should continue doing it this way instead of confining to or conforming to something different or new or pandering to what.
Yeah, it worked because we were honest with what we want. So I think, and even I think any music that we love, like if it's, why do we love one singer songwriter sitting and singing not out of tune, but you really feel, because you feel like that person was honest in what that person was doing. So I think that's hard, to be honest, because it's easy when you know tricks and you can do an 80s synth retro vibe and you're a gun for hire to do all of those things. But I think people connect with honesty the most.
Love it. And I think what's exciting for me as a fan of your work, as a fan of the genre and the indie space as well, is that there seems to be wider acceptance, not just of the tunes, right? I mean, we've seen hit indie tunes get absorbed into movies. That happens because they were hit indie tunes. But I think with Gehraiyaan, what you're also proving is that indie musicians have the chops to make songs for film, right? It's not that everything has to be formulaic. You have to work with the talent that this country is producing and give them the right opportunities to see them grow, right? I mean, With Dur, for example, right? I'm so okay to see that it's going to be in a movie as well. Why do you think that is, though? I mean, there definitely seems to be this trend, right? And I mean, I can imagine it's because there are more established indie musicians. There are platforms like Spotify and Instagram that have really, developed these communities around them. But as an insider, as the person who's sort of making this happen, what are your notes on this one?
So I think a couple of things happened. Firstly, and recently, pandemic, because pandemic there was no Bollywood, less Bollywood films, let's say. So people at home needed, obviously you need to listen to music to go through life. So they they would start discovering other artists which they might not be listening to, and there were less of. So I actually looking at some statistics, and I found out how in the pandemic there was a great increase in indie viewership, listeningship, etc. Secondly, like you said, platforms like Spotify and things like that make it more easier for artists, indie artists, to reach people. And hopefully the infrastructure is working and slowly growing to a place where indie musicians can actually make a decent living uh, through their music. Because at the end of the day, if musicians and artists are not making money and are not I mean, how is it going to work? They're going to have to do something else. So I think slowly that through streaming, through gigs, through everything, people are learning that, oh, I can make this into something viable for a longer career. Um, Bollywood now, I mean, uh, we were very lucky to be a part of this, where we had a director who was so open and trusting. But I see, like you said, Dur is now licensed by Netflix for a show. People are licensing other indie musicians' work. I think it's really the time. And chops the people have chops the matlab, I never believed for 1 second that the guy who was, or the girl who was making music for a big film had greater technical knowledge or something like that. In fact, I think it's the kids coming out of like music schools right now, people on their laptops who are experimenting, who are really doing crazy things and coming up with new innovative ideas. So I don't think it was a matter of chops. I think it was a matter of uh, creating a ecosystem where both can kind of work together.
Love it, man. I think I'm so glad this time has come, and I'm so glad it's in my lifetime as well, man. I mean, I used to be in a band at a time when indie music was this like small corner, and only like Zero and Pentagram and Thermal and a Quarter were like six bands, and to even consider that one of those bands would have a song in a movie, it would be like, what, are you serious? That's not even never going to happen. But I'm so glad it's happening now. What I'm going to do next is go into our episode ender segment called Water with Vineet.
Okay.
I'm actually thinking of renaming this Coconut Water with Vineet. We call it this segment because I don't drink and water is great. It has no resemblance to any other talk show that you've ever seen or heard. I have a few snap questions for you, and you have to give me snap answers. Ready or not, here I come with the first one. What is the best thing about working on a film?
Best thing working on a film, I get to not be guilty and make music the whole day from morning to night and not answer phone calls, nothing. Like, it's my job, so it's okay. I can be just doing that and nothing else.
Love it. What's the worst thing about working on a film?
I stopped meeting any friends for like 2-3 months. I didn't meet anyone. Don't do anything else.
Man, that sounds tough. Okay. Who do you consider the best young musicians, producers in India right now? Stuff that you like to listen to.
Oh, there are a bunch. I mean, I have to start with my partner Savera. With his indie music, Savera's music is amazing. There's a band called Easy Wanderlings and a bunch of friends. One of their songs is actually licensed in Gehraiyaan. Like it's part of the where it's playing inside the car. I love Sand Dunes. I love her music. I love the crazy things that she's doing. Ditty, I love her. I love her work. Lance, I mean, he's not put out too much stuff, but whatever he has, and as Nicholson, I was a fan. Kayan, man, she killing it. Kamakshi, there are a lot. There's so many cool. There are a few others that are maybe not as known, but who are doing great work.
Love it. And I love the shout outs to all those amazing artists. All of them are doing amazing work. 3 things that you did in your career as a musician. And of course, like when you're a musician, you're also like an entrepreneur for yourself, sort of. So 3 things that you did in your career that have stood you in good stead, that make you go, man, I was a smart music business person to do that.
Okay. Invest in myself, good collaborations, work with interesting people. And this is not a business thing, but I think having a good exposure to different kinds of music is very important to have good taste, to just be exposed to what's happening in the world. I think that's important.
Love it. I think, again, I totally love the simplicity and the directness, like do this, and this. Love it, man. I had such a blast talking to you. Thank you so much for taking time out and talking us through Gehraiyaan and the other cool stuff that you're doing. I hope you had fun, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was lovely. I hope I wasn't too vague or platitudes were not given, but I had fun.
No, it was real talk through and through, man. Thank you so much. And once again, congratulations to you, Lothika, Savera, on all the success that's coming your way. I'm sure this is just the beginning of the wave of Gehraiyaan. See what I did there?
Thank you.
That's it on this episode of Storytellers and Story Sellers. We had a blast talking to OAFF. I hope you go check out Gehraiyaan, listen to the music. If you like this episode, tell us on Twitter or on Instagram at IVM Podcast or at Ashcharya Fuck It. You can follow OAFF at
OAFF Music. You just search for OAFF Music, OAFF Music, and you'll find me.
That's where you'll find OAFF. That's it. This is it. This is the end of the episode. I hope you've had a great Valentine's week. It is a month of love. Go listen to Gehraiyaan. Don't cheat on your partners. Wash your hands. Stay safe. That's me, Vineet Kanabar, saying goodbye.
See you guys.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Advertising is Dead, Varun is in conversation with Vedant Lamba, sneakerhead and founder of the Main Street Marketplace. Vedant shares how his vlogging routine led to the creation of his sneaker company. On Shunya One, Sheila Datya and I are joined by Taran Chabra, founder of Neiman's. We talked to him about how he started the shoe company and built a value-driven brand. On Big Talk About Tiny Humans, Devi Shobha and Meghna share a 4-step guideline for talking to children about death. On Say No to Drama, Chetna drops some truth bombs about the happily ever after of life post the wedding. And on Hansvani, hear the story of Us Bheed Mein Wo Kaun Tha. It details the tragic story of the laborers who had to migrate their villages on foot during the pandemic in 2020. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our others for that matter, please do tell a friend. Don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms that you're listening to us, whether it's a rating, whether it's a review, it all helps. And do remember to check us out on YouTube. We have a number of channels. They're available on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. And finally, I would like to thank our sponsors this week, Bank of Baroda, CoinSwitch, Kuber, and HDFC Life Insurance. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Are you looking for finance products and services that can enhance your personal finance experience? Are you looking for a space to talk about your financial product or service? And are you looking for a crisp talk show where the conversation is all about money? Well, your search ends here. Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta and I'm host of the Paisa Vaisa podcast, and I invite you for the conversation about your personal finance on each Monday on the IVM Podcast app or the website or on any podcast streaming platforms. See you folks.